The first time Chloe saw Ethan, she dropped her coffee. It was freshman orientation at a university she'd almost chosen not to attend. She was standing in a crowded auditorium, holding a lukewarm latte and a folder full of papers she didn't understand, when a boy reached past her to grab an extra orientation packet from the table. Their elbows collided. The coffee tipped. It splattered across her white shirt, her folder, and the floor. He apologized so profusely that she couldn't even be upset. He grabbed napkins from a nearby table and started dabbing at her shirt, then realized what he was doing and turned bright red. He had messy brown hair, a scar above his left eyebrow, and eyes the color of rain clouds. He introduced himself as Ethan. She introduced herself as the girl whose shirt he'd just ruined. He laughed and said he'd make it up to her with a new coffee and maybe dinner and possibly a new shirt if she was feeling litigious. She said coffee would be fine. They spent the rest of orientation together. They sat next to each other in the auditorium, shared a bag of pretzels at lunch, and walked around campus until the sun went down. She learned that he was studying architecture, that he'd grown up in Seattle, that his parents were divorced, and that he had a habit of drawing on any available surface: napkins, notebooks, the back of his hand. He learned that she was studying English literature, that she wanted to be a writer, that she was terrified of failure, and that she laughed at his bad jokes even when she didn't understand them. By the end of that first day, Chloe knew something she'd never known before. She knew that she was going to love this person. Not in the casual way people say it in college, but in the deep, irreversible way that rearranges something inside you. She could feel it, like a door opening in a room she didn't know existed. But here's the thing about doors. Sometimes they open onto something you can't have. On the second day of orientation, Ethan mentioned his girlfriend. Her name was Megan. They'd been together since junior year of high school. She was attending a different university, 3 states away, but they were making it work. He said it casually, like he was mentioning the weather, and Chloe smiled and nodded while something inside her folded shut. She told herself it was just a crush, a first-day infatuation. She would get over it. She would meet other people. College was full of people. But college, as it turned out, was full of Ethan. They had a shared art history class. They ate lunch together twice a week. He drew her portrait on a napkin one afternoon and left it on her tray. A quick, confident sketch that captured the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was reading. She kept that napkin in her desk drawer for 4 years. She watched him date Megan long distance. She listened when he complained about the distance, when he fought with Megan on the phone, when he wondered if they were growing apart. She was the friend who comforted him, who gave advice, who said, maybe you two need a break, while secretly, shamefully hoping he'd take it. He never did. At the end of freshman year, Megan transferred to their university. Chloe watched Ethan's face light up when he saw her at the airport, and she felt something she would spend years trying to name. It wasn't just sadness. It was the quiet, private grief of loving someone who belonged to someone else. She started dating other people. A senior named David who was kind but boring. A musician named Jessie who forgot her birthday. She tried to feel something real for any of them, but every connection was a dim echo of the one she couldn't have. Junior year, Ethan and Megan broke up. It was messy and loud and public, a fight at a campus party that ended with Megan throwing a drink at him and walking out. Chloe found him sitting on the steps of the library an hour later, staring at his shoes. She sat down beside him without saying anything. He leaned his head on her shoulder, and she could smell his shampoo and feel the warmth of him through her jacket. And she thought, this is it. This is the moment, but the moment passed. He apologized for being a mess. He said he wasn't ready for anything. He said he needed time. She told him she understood, because that's what you say when you love someone and you're terrified of losing them entirely. 3 weeks later, he got back together with Megan. Chloe didn't speak to him for 2 months. She couldn't. Every time she saw his face, she felt the sting of that night on the library steps, the closeness, the hope, the quiet humiliation of being the person he came to when things broke, but never the person he chose when they were fixed. He texted her. He called. He showed up at her dorm with her favorite snack and a guilty expression. She eventually let him back in, because not having him in her life was worse than having him in it the wrong way. But something shifted between them after that. There was a wall she hadn't built before, a careful distance she maintained to protect herself. Senior year, Ethan proposed to Megan. Chloe saw the ring on Megan's finger at a graduation party, and she congratulated them both with a smile so convincing she almost believed it herself. That night, she went home and threw away the napkin portrait. Then she fished it out of the trash and put it back. After graduation, Chloe moved to New York for a publishing job. Ethan stayed in Seattle with Megan, working at an architecture firm. They texted occasionally, birthday messages, holiday greetings, the occasional "saw this and thought of you." Each message was a small, carefully wrapped package of everything they didn't say. 2 years passed. Chloe built a life in New York. She got promoted. She made friends. She dated a lawyer named Patrick who was stable and generous and who loved her in a quiet, uncomplicated way. She said yes when he proposed, because stable and generous and uncomplicated felt like everything she should want. She sent Ethan a wedding invitation. It was an impulse, or maybe a test. He wrote back saying he couldn't make it, but he sent a gift. A first edition of her favorite novel, with an inscription on the inside cover. "For Chloe," it read, "who always believed in stories worth telling. Love, Ethan." She stared at the word love for a long time. 6 weeks before the wedding, Chloe got a phone call. It was Ethan. His voice was different, tight, strained, like he'd been crying. Megan had left him. 3 weeks before their wedding, she'd met someone else. She'd packed a bag and gone. Chloe held the phone and listened to him break. She said all the right things. She told him she was sorry. She told him he would be okay. And when he said, "I just wish you were here," something cracked open in her chest that she'd spent years sealing shut. That night, she sat across from Patrick at dinner and told him she couldn't marry him. She didn't explain everything. She couldn't. But she told him she was broken in a way he didn't deserve. Patrick, to his credit, didn't argue. He squeezed her hand and said, "It's him, isn't it?" She didn't answer, but the silence was enough. She called Ethan the next day and told him she was coming to Seattle. The flight was 6 hours long. She spent every minute of it rehearsing what she would say, that she'd loved him since the day he spilled coffee on her, that she'd turned down a life with someone good because of him, that she was tired of being the friend, the confidant, the person on the other side of the glass. She was going to tell him all of it. She took a taxi from the airport straight to his apartment. Her hands were shaking as she pressed the buzzer. No answer. She pressed again. Nothing. She sat on the steps of his building and waited for an hour. Then she walked to a coffee shop around the corner to get out of the cold, and that's where she saw them. Through the window of the coffee shop, Ethan was sitting at a corner table. Across from him was a woman, blonde, pretty, laughing at something he'd said. He reached across the table and touched her hand. She smiled at him in a way Chloe recognized because she'd been on the receiving end of that smile in college, in the library, in 100 small moments she'd hoarded like treasure. Chloe stood on the sidewalk, her suitcase beside her, and felt the last of her hope turn to ash. She didn't go inside. She didn't call him. She walked back to the airport, bought a ticket on the next flight to New York, and left. She turned off her phone. When she landed, she deleted his number. She deleted his emails. She unfollowed him on every platform. She boxed up the first edition novel and the napkin portrait, and every other artifact of a love that had only ever existed. In her own head, she didn't speak to him for 3 years. 3 years during which she built a new life. Not a perfect one, but a real one. She wrote a novel. It got published. She dedicated it to anyone who has ever loved someone from a distance. She went on a book tour. She moved to Brooklyn. She adopted a cat named Hemingway. She was, if not happy, at least no longer waiting. And then, on a rainy Tuesday in October, she walked into a cafe in Manhattan to meet her editor, and there he was. Ethan was sitting at a corner table, sketching in a notebook, a half-empty cup of coffee beside him. He looked older. There were lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before, but his hair was still messy, and there was still a scar above his left eyebrow. And when he looked up and saw her, his face went through about 6 different emotions in 3 seconds. They stared at each other. The cafe was noisy around them, espresso machines, conversation, rain against the windows. But in that moment, there was only the two of them. He stood up. He said her name like a question. She should have left. She should have turned around and walked out. But her feet carried her to his table instead. "Can I sit?" she said. He nodded. She sat down. There was a long, terrible silence. "I thought you hated me," he said finally. "I did," she said, "for a while. Why didn't you tell me you were in Seattle?" She blinked. "How did you— Your sister," he said. "I ran into her at a conference 2 years ago. She told me you'd come, that you'd flown out, that you were going to—" He stopped, swallowed. "That you were going to tell me something." Chloe felt the ground shift beneath her. "You knew?" "I didn't know until later. And when I found out, I called you. I texted you. You were gone. Everywhere." He paused. "The woman in the coffee shop. That was my grief counselor. I was holding her hand because I'd just found out Megan was pregnant. With the other guy's baby. I was a wreck. That's all it was. The air left the room. Or maybe it left Chloe's lungs. She couldn't tell. You came to Seattle," he said slowly, "to tell me something." It wasn't a question. She could hear in his voice that he already knew. Maybe he'd always known. Maybe they'd both known. And they'd just spent a decade being too scared to say it out loud. "I came to tell you I loved you," she said. "I've loved you since orientation. Since you spilled coffee on me and turned red and offered to buy me dinner. I loved you when you were with Megan, and when you got engaged, and when you called me that night and said you wished I was there. I loved you enough to fly across the country, and then I loved you enough to leave when I thought you'd found someone else. I've loved you for 10 years, Ethan, in every direction, at every distance. I don't know how to stop." The cafe was still noisy. The rain was still falling. But Ethan was looking at her with an expression she'd never seen before. Not surprise, not confusion, but something like relief. Like a man who'd been holding his breath for 10 years and could finally exhale. He reached into his notebook and tore out a page. He slid it across the table to her. It was a drawing. Her. Sitting in a cafe, reading a book, tucking her hair behind her ear. It was dated that morning. "I draw you," he said. "All the time. I've been drawing you for 10 years. In every city I've lived in, every notebook I've owned. I just didn't know what to do with it. With any of it." He paused. "I was engaged to Megan for 3 years, and I spent the whole time wondering what it would be like to love someone who actually chose me back. Not out of habit, not out of history, but because they saw me." He looked at her, really looked at her. "You saw me," he said, "from the very beginning. And I was too stupid and too scared and too tangled up in the wrong life to see it. But I'm seeing it now." He reached across the table. This time it wasn't a grief counselor's hand he was reaching for. It was hers, and Chloe, who had spent 10 years learning how to let go, how to walk away, how to protect herself from exactly this moment, did the bravest thing she'd ever done. She took his hand. They sat in that cafe for 3 hours. While the rain came down and the light faded from the windows, they talked about everything. The coffee, the napkin, the library steps, the phone call, the coffee shop in Seattle, the 3 years of silence. They talked about the time they'd lost and the time they still had. They cried. They laughed. They held hands across a table that wasn't big enough for 10 years of unspoken things, but it was a start. A year later, Ethan proposed to Chloe in a bookstore on Maple Street. It wasn't the same one. That one had closed years ago. But it had exposed brick walls and string lights, and a window where the rain came down just right. He didn't have a ring yet, but he had a napkin, and he drew one on it, and he said, "I'm going to spend the rest of my life making up for the 10 years I made you wait." She said yes before he finished the sentence. They were married the following autumn, on a rainy Tuesday in October. She carried a first edition of her favorite novel instead of a bouquet. He wore a scar above his left eyebrow, and a smile she hadn't seen since the day they met. At the reception, someone asked them how they'd met. They looked at each other and laughed because the answer was both simple and impossible. Orientation, Chloe said. He spilled coffee on me. Fate, Ethan said. And for the first time in her life, Chloe didn't correct him. Because maybe that's what fate is, after all. Not a lightning strike, not a grand design, just two people who keep finding their way back to each other. Through every wrong turn and closed door and year of silence, until one day they finally stop walking away. If this story made you feel something, hit the like button. It helps more people find it. And maybe someone out there needs to hear that waiting isn't always wasted. Comment below. Have you ever loved someone from a distance? What happened? I read every comment. Subscribe for more stories about love, timing, and the moments that change everything. Hit the notification bell so you never miss one. And if you're holding on to something you're scared to say it. The right person will still be there when you do.